"I think we should slow things down," she said after 3 years together, so I slowed down to a complete stop and walked away. Her panicked call saying, "That's not what I meant," started an hour later. Grace called me during my lunch break while I was reviewing solar panel installation specs at our Denver worksite, her voice carrying that careful tone people use when they're about to drop something heavy on you. I set down my turkey sandwich and listened as she explained that she'd been thinking about us, about our relationship trajectory, and maybe we needed to take a step back and reassess where we were heading together as a couple. The cellular tower behind me hummed quietly as I absorbed her words, watching my crew adjust panels on the warehouse roof below while storm clouds gathered over the Rocky Mountains in the distance. "It's not that I don't love you," she continued, her marketing professional voice slipping into the rehearsed cadence she used for difficult client presentations. "I just think we've been moving so fast lately, and I need some space to breathe and figure out what I really want from this relationship." The irony wasn't lost on me. After 3 years, she was suddenly concerned about our pace. "Okay," I said simply, my mind already shifting into the methodical planning mode that had served me well in renewable energy consulting for the past 6 years. If Grace wanted to slow down, I'd interpret that request with the same precision I used for energy efficiency calculations, complete and immediate implementation with measurable results. I drove straight home after work and began systematically removing every trace of our 3-year relationship from my apartment with the same thoroughness I'd use for decommissioning a solar array that had reached end of life. Her spare toothbrush went into the first cardboard box, followed by the expensive moisturizer she'd insisted on keeping in my bathroom cabinet, her collection of herbal teas that cluttered my kitchen shelves, the throw pillows she'd bought to soften the masculine energy of my living room, and the stack of marketing industry magazines she'd been accumulating on my coffee table for months. I changed every password we'd shared: Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Spotify playlists, even my home security system that she'd accessed during her increasingly frequent stays that had essentially turned into cohabitation without the official commitment. The shared grocery delivery account got canceled, our joint gym membership separated back into individual accounts, and I contacted the property manager to have her spare key deactivated immediately before boxing it up and scheduling overnight delivery to her marketing firm's office downtown. I removed the photos from my refrigerator, deleted our shared calendar events, canceled the weekend getaway reservations she'd made for next month, and methodically worked through every digital connection we'd built over 3 years together. By 6 p.m., her belongings filled 3 neatly labeled cardboard boxes stacked by my front door, each one inventoried with the same attention to detail I used for client project deliverables, accompanied by a handwritten note on my company letterhead explaining that I'd carefully considered her request to slow things down and decided the most efficient approach would be bringing everything to a complete and immediate stop. When Grace arrived that evening at 7:30 expecting what she later called a mature conversation about relationship pacing and emotional boundaries, she found her life compartmentalized into easily transportable containers and a typed inventory list detailing every item for her convenience. "What is all this, Caleb?" she asked, staring at the boxes like they contained evidence of a crime she hadn't committed yet somehow felt responsible for. I handed her the note and watched her face change from confusion to alarm as she read my careful explanation that slowing down seemed like an excellent suggestion, so I'd implemented her recommendation immediately and permanently with the thoroughness she'd always admired in my professional work. "This isn't what I meant when I said slow down," she stammered, looking between the boxes and my impassive expression like she was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. Her phone started buzzing exactly 63 minutes later with increasingly frantic calls that I let go to voicemail, each message clarifying that she'd meant taking things emotionally slower, not ending our relationship entirely, a distinction that seemed critically important to her but completely irrelevant to me since the practical outcome remained exactly the same regardless of her intended semantics. Grace's inner circle launched a coordinated assault that would have impressed military strategists, starting with her roommate Brooke confronting me at my favorite brewery 3 days later. I was reviewing installation permits over a craft beer when she materialized beside my table like an avenging angel in yoga pants, her voice loud enough to make every patron within 20 feet stop their conversations and stare at our developing drama. "You're being completely unreasonable about this whole situation," she announced, sliding uninvited into the booth across from me while gesturing dramatically with her kombucha bottle. Grace is absolutely devastated by your childish reaction to a simple request for emotional space, and frankly, I think you owe her a massive apology for this manipulative power play. I calmly closed my laptop and looked at her directly, noting how her rehearsed speech sounded remarkably similar to Grace's marketing presentation style, complete with buzzwords and emotional manipulation techniques. She asked to slow down, so I slowed down to a complete stop, I replied, taking another sip of my beer while maintaining steady eye contact. That's not slowing down, that's being a vindictive asshole, Brooke snapped, her voice rising to a level that made the bartender glance over with obvious concern about the brewing confrontation. When I didn't react to her insult, she escalated further, standing up and pointing accusingly while launching into a tirade about my emotional immaturity and Grace's superior communication skills that attracted the attention of every customer in the establishment. The manager approached our table within minutes, politely but firmly asking us both to leave before the situation disrupted other patrons further, which gave me the perfect excuse to pack up my work and exit gracefully while Brooke continued her public meltdown in the parking lot. Her coworker Spencer called my business partner the next morning, his voice dripping with fake concern as he explained that Grace was having a complete psychological breakdown and needed professional intervention from someone who understood her delicate emotional state. "Look, I don't know you personally," Spencer told my partner during what he assumed was a private consultation, but Grace has been completely unable to function at work since Caleb's brutal rejection of her reasonable request for relationship counseling, and honestly, I think he might need some kind of professional help for his obvious control issues. My partner forwarded me the entire conversation recording, which revealed Spencer's amateur attempt at psychological manipulation while positioning himself as Grace's white knight protector who understood her complex emotional needs better than her previous boyfriend ever could. The yoga instructor friend Autumn started showing up at my gym with suspicious regularity, always timing her arrival to coincide with my usual workout schedule that she'd somehow obtained through mutual friend reconnaissance. She'd position herself on adjacent equipment and launch into loud phone conversations about Grace's emotional trauma and my apparent inability to handle mature relationship discussions, clearly hoping I'd overhear and feel guilty enough to reach out with an apology. When subtle manipulation failed, Autumn graduated to direct confrontation, approaching me during my cool-down stretches to deliver unsolicited relationship advice about forgiveness and second chances while blocking my path to the exit. Her college friend Dakota took a more technologically sophisticated approach, creating multiple fake Instagram accounts to monitor my social media activity and sending anonymous messages to my renewable energy clients about my alleged unstable personal life and questionable business ethics. The messages claimed I was going through a difficult breakup that was affecting my professional judgment and suggested they might want to consider more emotionally stable contractors for their solar installation projects, complete with screenshots of my social media posts taken out of context to support her manufactured narrative. I discovered the campaign when 3 different clients forwarded me identical anonymous emails questioning my mental health and professional reliability, each one featuring the same grammatical errors and writing style that matched Dakota's LinkedIn posts perfectly. The harassment reached its peak when Grace's brother Isaac followed me to a renewable energy conference in Fort Collins, somehow obtaining my registration information and conference schedule through methods I never quite figured out. He spent the entire morning approaching my potential clients during networking sessions, introducing himself as my ex-girlfriend's protective brother and warning them about my erratic behavior and emotional instability that made me unsuitable for long-term business relationships. "I'm just looking out for these good people," Isaac explained to a group of municipal energy directors while gesturing toward me across the conference hall, "because my sister's ex-boyfriend has some serious issues with commitment and follow-through that might affect your solar projects down the road." Conference security escorted him out after multiple complaints from attendees who felt uncomfortable with his unprofessional behavior, but not before he'd managed to poison several promising business conversations and force me to spend valuable networking time explaining the situation to confused potential clients who'd been blindsided by his amateur sabotage campaign. Grace hired an attorney demanding $18,500 for returned gifts, vacation deposits, and intentional emotional distress, while threatening to sue my business for lost income due to stress, but her legal threats crumbled faster than her credibility when my lawyer prepared harassment charges and discovered the shocking truth behind her sudden request to slow down our relationship. The demand letter arrived on legal letterhead with itemized claims that read like a fantasy shopping list. $3,200 for the weekend getaway to Aspen she claimed we jointly planned, $2,800 for a tennis bracelet I'd allegedly promised to buy her for our anniversary, $4,500 for emotional damages caused by my deliberate humiliation tactics, and another $8,000 for lost work productivity due to the psychological trauma I'd inflicted with my sudden relationship termination. My attorney easily dismantled her ridiculous claims while simultaneously preparing counterdocumentation for harassment charges based on her friend's coordinated intimidation campaign, but the real bombshell emerged during legal discovery when we subpoenaed her phone records and social media activity. Security footage from Denver's jewelry district told a story Grace never intended anyone to discover, showing me visiting 3 different high-end jewelry stores over 6 months, spending considerable time examining engagement rings with sales associates who clearly knew me as a serious customer rather than a casual browser. The investigation revealed I'd been working with a sustainable jewelry designer for 4 months, commissioning a custom engagement ring made from recycled gold and ethically sourced diamonds that cost $4,200 and required multiple design consultations that appeared on my calendar and credit card statements. Grace's coworker Spencer had been secretly photographing me during these visits from his car parked across the street, building a comprehensive file of evidence about my engagement ring shopping that he'd shared with Grace through encrypted messaging apps that we discovered during the legal discovery process. The timeline was devastatingly clear. Grace's sudden need to slow down coincided exactly with Spencer showing her photographic proof that I was planning to propose during our upcoming anniversary trip to Aspen, which I'd spent weeks planning down to the restaurant reservations and mountain trail locations where I'd intended to ask the most important question of my life. Instead of having an honest conversation about marriage timeline concerns or commitment fears, Grace chose manipulation as her preferred communication strategy, hoping to delay what she assumed was my planned proposal while keeping me as her backup option in case her exploration of alternatives didn't pan out as expected. Your client appears to have been aware of my client's engagement ring purchase for approximately 6 weeks before initiating the breakup conversation, my attorney explained to her legal counsel during their settlement discussion, presenting a folder of evidence that included Spencer's surveillance photos, Grace's panicked text messages to friends about Caleb getting too serious too fast, and her internet search history showing multiple queries about how to delay boyfriend proposal without breaking up and buying time in serious relationship. The legal proceedings revealed Spencer's role as both Grace's emotional affair partner and her intelligence gatherer, feeding her information about my plans while positioning himself as the safer alternative who understood her need for freedom and spontaneity rather than my apparent obsession with traditional relationship milestones like engagement and marriage. Grace's attorney quietly withdrew all claims after reviewing the evidence package that painted his client as someone who'd rather destroy a loving relationship than engage in honest communication about her fears, while simultaneously pursuing another man behind her boyfriend's back with the help of that same man's professional surveillance of her current partner's private activities. Spencer posted LinkedIn updates about their new relationship status just 3 weeks after the breakup, including professional photos from a sustainable energy summit they attended together in Boulder that Grace had originally planned to attend with me before her sudden need for relationship deceleration. The posts featured them networking at industry cocktail receptions with captions about finding the right business partner who understands your vision and values, which felt like a deliberate slap at my consulting work while positioning their relationship as both romantic and professionally strategic. Investigation through mutual connections in Denver's renewable energy community revealed months of private communications between Spencer and Grace that preceded our breakup by a considerable margin, including romantic dinners disguised as client meetings and weekend strategy sessions that coincided perfectly with my out-of-town business trips to Colorado Springs and Grand Junction. Her friend Brooke accidentally exposed the affair's timeline during an angry confrontation outside my apartment building, where she'd come to deliver another emotional manipulation attempt but instead revealed that Grace had been keeping her options open with Spencer for nearly 8 months before initiating our breakup conversation. Grace wasn't trying to hurt you, Brooke insisted, blocking my path to my front door while waving her hands dramatically. She was just confused about what she wanted because Spencer offered her opportunities you couldn't match, and she needed time to figure out which future made more sense for her career and personal growth. The phrase, keeping her options open, hit like a physical blow, confirming what I'd suspected but hoped wasn't true, that our entire final year together had been Grace's extended audition process for her replacement while maintaining me as her safety net. Phone records obtained during the legal proceedings painted an even more devastating picture of betrayal, showing daily contact between Grace and Spencer throughout our entire relationship, including intimate conversations during my business trips to remote solar installation sites where cell coverage made communication with Grace spotty and unreliable. The most crushing revelation came from analyzing the metadata on their text message exchanges, which showed they'd been coordinating their affair around my schedule with military precision, meeting for romantic dinners on nights when I worked late preparing renewable energy proposals and conducting weekend retreats to discuss their professional collaboration. During my grandfather's funeral in Ohio that Grace claimed she couldn't attend due to urgent work commitments. "I can't leave town this weekend," she told me with tears in her eyes when I'd asked her to come with me to support my family during one of the most difficult moments of my life. Spencer's organized this critical strategy session for the Morrison account, and missing it could seriously damage my standing at the firm. While I was delivering my grandfather's eulogy and helping my grandmother sort through 60 years of marriage memories, Grace and Spencer were enjoying a romantic weekend getaway at a mountain resort in Vail, posting carefully cropped Instagram photos that excluded each other but documented the same locations and time frames through geotags and timestamps. The phone records showed over 300 text messages exchanged between them during that single weekend, including photos of the sunrise from their shared hotel room and detailed discussions about their future together that made it clear our relationship had been over in her mind for months before she bothered to inform me. Spencer had been feeding her professional opportunities and career advancement promises while simultaneously providing the emotional validation and financial security she'd been seeking, positioning himself as the upgrade she deserved rather than the lateral move I represented in her ambitious climb toward whatever lifestyle she thought she wanted. After Spencer left her for a newer hire at their marketing firm, Grace began an increasingly desperate campaign to win me back, starting with hiring a drone to fly a "Forgive Me Caleb" banner over my company's solar installation project at the Denver International Airport, creating a spectacle that forced my crew to stop work and answer questions from curious airport security personnel about our personal drama. I was calibrating inverter settings when my foreman pointed skyward at the banner trailing behind a small aircraft, followed immediately by my phone buzzing with calls from colleagues who'd seen photos of the aerial apology circulating on local renewable energy professional networks. The drone stunt marked the beginning of Grace's escalating reconciliation campaign that would have impressed military strategists with its coordination and persistence, starting subtle but quickly graduating to elaborate productions that disrupted my professional life in increasingly creative ways. She enrolled in the same rock climbing gym where I'd been training for mountain rescue certification, somehow obtaining my schedule through mutual friend reconnaissance and coordinating her climbing sessions to coincide with mine through what appeared to be professional surveillance techniques. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, Grace materialized on adjacent climbing routes wearing the expensive gear she'd obviously purchased specifically for this campaign, struggling through beginner routes while making loud comments about missing her climbing partner and regretting losing someone who'd taught her to appreciate outdoor adventures. When coincidental encounters failed to generate the romantic reconciliation she'd envisioned, Grace escalated to having gourmet coffee delivered daily to my office from increasingly expensive Denver coffee roasters, each delivery accompanied by handwritten notes that evolved from simple apologies to detailed relationship timelines explaining every mistake she'd made and how she'd learned from each betrayal. The notes arrived with elaborate coffee orders that referenced inside jokes from our relationship: one large sustainable blend with oat milk, extra shot of commitment, no more games, and dark roast like my regret, sweetened with the hope of second chances, served at the temperature of my burning desire to make this right. My business partner found the coffee campaign alternately amusing and concerning, especially when Grace began including detailed business proposals for how her marketing expertise could benefit our renewable energy consulting firm, essentially offering to work for free if it meant spending time in my professional orbit. Her tactics escalated to applying for receptionist positions at competing renewable energy companies throughout the Denver metro area, hoping to cross paths with me professionally since personal approaches had failed to generate the forgiveness she desperately needed. I discovered this strategy when 3 different competitors called to verify her references, each conversation revealing that Grace had specifically asked about potential collaboration opportunities with my firm and whether their companies worked with my consulting services on a regular basis. The receptionist campaign backfired when one of my longtime industry contacts called to warn me that my ex-girlfriend was seeking employment specifically to gain access to my professional network, raising concerns about corporate espionage and confidentiality breaches that could damage my business relationships. Grace's masterpiece arrived via certified mail, a 52-page scrapbook documenting our 3-year relationship timeline with detailed explanations for every mistake, betrayal, and missed opportunity, complete with printed text messages, photo timelines, and handwritten margin notes explaining her thought process during each pivotal moment of our deteriorating relationship. The scrapbook included sections titled, "Where I Went Wrong," "Signs I Should Have Communicated Better," and "Evidence of My Personal Growth Since Our Separation," with appendices containing character references from mutual friends and a detailed action plan for rebuilding trust through measurable behavioral changes and relationship milestones. When subtlety completely failed to achieve her objectives, Grace appeared at my apartment door at 6 a.m. wearing the exact outfit from our first camping trip, hiking boots, cargo pants, and the flannel shirt she'd borrowed and never returned, carrying breakfast from our favorite food truck that had permanently closed during the pandemic lockdowns 8 months earlier. I explained through my door that the business no longer existed, just like our relationship, but she persisted for 45 minutes, describing how she'd tracked down the food truck owner's new restaurant across town and convinced him to recreate our usual breakfast order as proof of her dedication to restoring what we'd lost together. Grace orchestrated a fake family emergency, having her mother call me claiming Grace was hospitalized after a climbing accident and specifically asking for me, exploiting my known compassion for family crises that she'd observed during my grandfather's death and my sister's divorce proceedings the previous year. The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing solar panel efficiency reports, her mother's voice trembling with what sounded like genuine panic as she explained that Grace had fallen during a climbing session and was asking for me specifically from her hospital bed at Presbyterian St. Joseph. "She keeps saying your name, Caleb," her mother sobbed into the phone, "and the doctors think having familiar faces around might help with her emotional recovery from the trauma, especially since she's been so depressed lately about losing you." Despite every rational instinct telling me this felt like manipulation, my ingrained response to family emergencies overrode my skepticism, and I found myself driving to the hospital with the same urgency I'd felt when my grandfather had his heart attack 2 years earlier. When I arrived at the emergency waiting room following the directions her mother had provided, I discovered Grace sitting perfectly healthy in a chair by the vending machines, still wearing her climbing gear but showing no signs of injury, medical treatment, or distress beyond the obvious anxiety of someone whose elaborate plan was about to backfire spectacularly. She looked up when I walked in, her face cycling through relief, guilt, and desperate hope as she realized her fake emergency had successfully manipulated me into breaking my complete contact embargo for the first time since our breakup 3 months earlier. "Caleb, thank God you came," she said, standing up quickly and reaching toward me with hands that showed no signs of climbing injuries, medical tape, or the cuts and bruises that would accompany any serious accident requiring hospitalization. I stared at her for a long moment, processing the elaborate deception while hospital staff moved around us attending to actual medical emergencies, the contrast between real crisis and manufactured drama becoming painfully obvious as I watched her healthy, uninjured form try to maintain the illusion of victimhood. "There's nothing wrong with you," I said quietly, my voice carrying the same tone I used when identifying fraudulent energy efficiency claims in client proposals, calm but absolutely certain of the facts despite any emotional manipulation attempts. She immediately began crying, But these weren't the tears of someone relieved to see a loved one during a medical crisis. They were the desperate tears of someone whose last resort manipulation strategy had failed and who now faced the consequences of using fake emergencies to exploit someone's compassion. "I know how this looks," Grace stammered, her voice breaking as she tried to salvage some credibility from the wreckage of her plan, "but I really did get hurt, just not physically, and I needed you to understand how much pain I've been in since you left me, and this was the only way to reach you after you blocked all my attempts to communicate." Her confession revealed the calculated nature of her deception. She'd researched my psychological triggers, identified my compassionate response to family crises, and deliberately weaponized my empathy to force a meeting she couldn't achieve through honest communication or genuine relationship repair efforts. "You manipulated me using a fake medical emergency," I replied, my voice steady despite the anger building in my chest, "which tells me everything I need to know about how much you've learned from our relationship and why it ended permanently." When I turned to leave, Grace followed me to the parking garage, her voice becoming increasingly frantic as she begged for one more chance to explain herself, promising that this was just desperation talking and that she'd learned valuable lessons about communication and honesty that would transform our relationship if I'd give her the opportunity to demonstrate her growth. "This isn't about communication lessons," I told her as I reached my truck, turning to face her one final time with the same professional composure I used when terminating contracts with unreliable vendors. "This is about your willingness to fake emergencies to manipulate my emotions, which proves you understand nothing about trust, respect, or healthy relationships." Her final plea came as I opened my truck door, "But I love you, and love makes people do crazy things when they're desperate to save what matters most to them." My response was delivered with the quiet finality of someone closing a business deal that had gone irreparably wrong. "You got exactly what you asked for when you wanted to slow down our relationship, Grace. You just didn't expect it to happen with someone other than Spencer." 8 months later, I had relocated to a different Denver neighborhood closer to the mountains, started a new business partnership focused on commercial solar installations with a colleague who shared my vision for sustainable energy infrastructure, and begun dating a fellow environmental consultant who valued transparent communication above everything else, including romantic grand gestures and dramatic relationship milestones. I sold the custom engagement ring to a young couple starting their own sustainable jewelry business, using the proceeds to fund a solo backpacking trip through Colorado's wilderness areas that I'd postponed for years due to Grace's adamant dislike of camping, outdoor activities, and any vacation that didn't feature luxury accommodations with room service and spa treatments. The ring's sale felt like closing a chapter rather than losing an investment. Watching the couple's excitement as they examined the recycled gold and ethical diamonds reminded me why I'd chosen those materials in the first place, and seeing their genuine appreciation for craftsmanship and sustainability confirmed that the ring had found people who would treasure it for the right reasons. All remaining shared possessions in various storage locations throughout Denver got donated to local environmental nonprofits after Grace failed to collect them within the legal deadline we'd established during the harassment case proceedings, while I systematically rebuilt my social media presence without any traces of our shared history or relationship timeline. I methodically removed every photo, deleted every tagged location from our travel adventures, and blocked every mutual connection who'd participated in Grace's campaign of harassment and manipulation, creating clean digital boundaries that reflected the emotional distance I'd achieved through months of intentional healing and professional focus. My apartment transformation became a reflection of my renewed priorities: solar-powered gadgets, energy-efficient appliances, books about renewable energy policy, outdoor gear for weekend mountain adventures, and artwork from local environmental artists who shared my passion for sustainable living rather than consumer culture and status symbol accumulation. The dating process with Emma, my environmental consultant colleague, felt refreshingly different from every interaction I'd experienced with Grace. Conversations focused on shared professional interests, honest discussions about future goals and timeline expectations, and natural relationship progression without manipulation tactics or artificial drama creation. Emma appreciated my methodical approach to planning weekend trips, my spreadsheet-organized hiking gear inventory, and my tendency to research restaurant sustainability practices before choosing dinner locations, seeing these traits as evidence of thoughtful consideration rather than controlling behavior or obsessive micromanagement. I love how you think about everything systematically, Emma told me during one of our early hiking dates in Rocky Mountain National Park. It makes me feel like you're building something intentional with me rather than just letting things happen randomly without any consideration for long-term compatibility or shared values. Our relationship developed with the steady progression I'd always preferred: honest conversations about marriage timelines, transparent discussions about career goals and geographic preferences, collaborative decision-making about major purchases and vacation planning, and mutual respect for individual interests and professional commitments without jealousy or control issues. My final reflection focused on recognizing that 3 years with someone who chose manipulation over honesty had taught me the exact communication standards I require in future relationships, leading me to prioritize authentic connection over convenience when making important life decisions about partnership and commitment. The experience with Grace had served as an expensive but valuable education in identifying red flags, setting boundaries, and understanding the difference between someone who loves you and someone who loves what you provide for them in terms of financial security, emotional validation, and lifestyle enhancement. I learned to appreciate Emma's directness when she said she needed space to focus on a major project deadline, her honesty when discussing past relationship failures and lessons learned, and her transparency about financial goals and expectations that aligned with my own values around money management and long-term planning. The contrast between Grace's manipulation tactics and Emma's straightforward communication style highlighted how much emotional energy I'd wasted trying to decode hidden meanings, navigate unspoken expectations, and provide support for someone who viewed relationships as strategic advantages rather than partnerships built on mutual respect and genuine affection.